On this episode of ResiWeek, we look back at the best of 2016, the most downloaded, the most listened to shows, look at a couple Snap AV acquisitions, overtime pay, and the acquisition of Harman by Samsung. All that and more, next on ResiWeek.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
is AV.
This
is AVNation.
This is AVNation.
This is ResiWeek, episode 47, recorded Monday, December 26, 2016, the best of 2016. ResiWeek is brought to you by our fine group of underwriters, companies like Middle Atlantic. This is ResiWeek, the weekly look at news and information for the residential AV community. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host for this episode. Typically, it would be Matt Scott. We are giving him the week off for the holidays. Like a lot of you, everybody here at AVNation is taking some time off, spending time with the family. So what we've typically done for our weekly shows, AV Week being one of them, ResiWeek the other, is we look back at our most downloaded, most listened to, and most shared episodes and look at see what the stories in those episodes made the biggest impact. First up, Snap AV had two significant acquisitions in the last couple of months.
Snap AV, there we go, has been making some moves. And as you know, recently they purchased, I think it was about a year ago, they bought Sunbright. Well, they just acquired another company. They purchased a Florida-based company called Vigilant. This comes to us from Residential Systems and our good friend Jeremy Glowacki. Snap has, as I said, purchased this intelligent surveillance equipment company and is looking at integrating this into their Luma analog and IP surveillance systems. Jason, is this something that, obviously Snap has been buying up kind of companies sort of left and right a little bit. But is this something where we're expecting to see this technology, which seems to be quite interesting, in their Luma products very quickly, or is this something that is going to take some time to hit the line?
Yeah, I think without question, it's probably going to take a little bit of time. I think it's a brilliant acquisition personally. I know that surveillance is an increasingly popular category. We're seeing a lot of demand for it. And to have something like what Vigilant brings to the table in terms of that analytics and taking surveillance to that next level by adding that intelligence to it is a very clear value add that we as home technology professionals can piggyback on. I think Snap AV has been doing some really good things in the area of surveillance. I know that the Luma line of NVRs and DVRs that they showed, I think originally at CEDIA 2015 was actually one of my top stories coming out of there. I think they did a great job with that app in terms of blending. We've seen a lot of functionality come out of products like DropCam and now the Nest Cam that consumers really love. Just the really easy ability to go back, look at footage, pull clips out. And surely these things are not nearly as powerful as a professional surveillance solution, but just having that ease of use on a client-facing app is something that I believe the Luma line did very well. And so I think this is just a move that can build on some of the momentum that Snap AV has been building already with that line. And so I'm excited to see where it goes.
Now, is this something where, Jason, you led into my next question with, how it competes with a upper echelon security solution. John, is this something that this acquisition specifically, does this help them hit or go after a higher market, whether that be strictly residential or also into the commercial space because of the analytics that are involved?
I think absolutely. I mean, look, as an integrator, I had used their products and tied them into our control systems. And some of the analytics and the triggers you can get from that, where it sees a person and can automatically flip your TV over to view that camera, and not and being able to discern from just any active or change in video is extremely powerful. And these are features that, once the end users really become more exposed to, are going to begin to expect from other products.
Richard, is this something where, Snap kind of for a long time had a reputation of being what it was? with the acquisition of Sunbright, with the acquisition of Vigilant, is this something that is taking it beyond, how it first entered the space and into something more, something, I don't want to say better, but something greater maybe?
They're maturing as a company. I mean, when they first came in, they were kind of a reference place for installers. It had the tweaky stuff that an installer needed, and that was, kind of taking that bizarre approach, which was, you need a cable, you need this. And as they've grown, they have found that they have a unique place in the market as an alternative to dealing with multiple distributors, or having to go through the distribution network, not necessarily having to go through a buying group if you're an integrator. So, they're looking to reduce the friction and the drag necessary for a lot of these integrators who aren't necessarily large companies, who can't buy in bulk, who maybe don't necessarily have a way to enter into a buying group. Maybe the distributors aren't necessarily available in their area. There's not sales support, or there's not showrooms available to them. And with Snap, and the first thing that I thought of when I saw that this happened is they are really, really concentrating on their overseas network. That entire platform is built on diagnostics and analytics. So it's a natural dovetail. And especially because consumer awareness has grown. I mean, you not only have the drop cam, but Netgear came out with a product called Arlo, which also works really well. A friend of mine, like on Facebook, posted he had 6 cameras set up within half an hour. Just plugged them in and they went. What that meant, though, was that the awareness for surveillance, and in heightened time, surveillance is definitely getting more exposure. People are more comfortable with it. Because of the reality that you can access it from a mobile device, that there becomes that from the hobbyist group approach, or maybe for a camera where you can plug it in. But then when you're dealing in other projects, which is you need it outside, or you need it where you don't have a power plug nearby, there's all of these other options where professional installation makes sense. But John called it's the analytics, it's the ability to be able to make sense of everything that's gone on. Because typically a surveillance system, the rule of a surveillance system is you never need it when you're just sitting there looking at the camera. You really need it at 4 a.m. on a Sunday, or, if something happens. And we've been involved in a couple of projects where we've had to pull footage, and being able to access and being able to identify and being able to track that information accurately. And that is something that a consumer-based device isn't going to be able to give you. From a security standpoint and from a life safety standpoint. So, I see it as a natural progression. Luma was their first foray into it. But, Snap now has their residential side and their commercial side. Mm-hmm. So there's applications where strictly for, small businesses, this you could just put in this package all by itself without necessarily dealing with any of the other parts of it.
Very good. Let's
if I can jump in here real quick, I'll say I want to add also that what Snap AV does right now better than anyone is makes it easy for their dealers to buy equipment. I mean, their website, to go on there and shop, it's like going onto Amazon and shopping for equipment. Mm-hmm. And there are so many other places in this industry where you can go to purchase equipment where, let's just say, the experience is quite different. And it's just it's amazing to me what Snap AV has been able to do to push that forward. And so, on the other side of that coin, you have Vigilant. We've talked about, is this a good acquisition for Snap AV? Well, what about on the other side of that coin? Is this good for Vigilant? And I think from that perspective, clearly it's a huge win. They'll get to benefit from access to, Snap AV's dealer base and all of the convenience that comes with purchasing through Snap AV, including free 2-day shipping on everything and easy returns and all of that. So I think from where I sit, it's a win-win for both companies.
Well, especially when you look at the fact that Vigilant is going from a 15-person company to becoming part of the power that is Snap AV. It's going to be fantastic. This past week, there was more exciting news out of Snap AV. It turns around that they were not going to rest on their laurels after their last purchase. They were going to keep buying companies. And as you can see in this article, they went ahead and bought Autonomic, the #1 brand of media servers among high-revenue integrators. This is a bit of a big move, if I can say so, for Snap, who is moving into, distributed audio, and not only just any distributed audio, but Autonomic, who, has been known for quite a while as probably the number one standalone distributed audio, high-end audio company. Jeremy, is this Snap just continuing to try and dominate the market and go after every little niche that it does not already have? Or is this them picking up a company that really fits their true core system?
Well, I spoke to the folks at Snap AV on both their recent acquisitions. They're 2 weeks ago, I believe, or 3 weeks ago, they acquired Vigilant, which is that security brand that is complementary to their already existing security products. And what they seem to be going back to every time, or both times I've spoken to them, is the Sunbright TV acquisition a year ago. And I think that one kind of, I don't know for a fact how that played out, but it seems like perhaps that one was an opportunity they couldn't refuse. It was a situation that was sort of presented to them. They jumped on it back then. And it was a proof of concept that they now can acquire companies and integrate them very successfully into their ecosystem. And instead of creating products and badging them for their own, creating their own product lines, which is a challenge for any company, they can get a whole cloth product in their arsenal in a category that they don't have already represented. And this is a category was missing from their lineup, was presented as an opportunity. They must have good cash on hand to be able to make this kind of a purchase, but I don't know if it's going to continue. There's how many more products you could look and see what are they missing. I haven't really analyzed that, but I think if the opportunity affords that, they've decided this is a successful way of growing their capabilities for sure, and much easier than trying to create their own product from scratch.
Very true. Tim, as this comes to fruition and as this plays out over the next couple of months, when we start to see this being available from Snap directly, is this something that, it's obviously going to affect dealers in a couple of ways. If you currently buy from Snap, or for us through their distributor up here, it's going to give you access to Autonomic, which you may or may not have had before, which, again, gives you that ability to bring a true wired solution at a price point that hits most of the wireless systems that are out there. They've got a system that goes up against the Big S system fairly effectively in a wired traditional platform. What does this mean to those integrators who are now looking at it saying, hey, I can now add Autonomic to my repertoire?
Well, it's a great help for them. And that's one of the things that we and Jeremy's talked to integrators as well over the last 2 years, right, with all these different M&As and mergers and acquisitions, about getting access to new product. This one specifically, Autonomics is a really good company. They've got a long track record. Their products are pretty solid. And it's going to give folks who are currently in the Snap AV ecosystem, if you didn't have access to Autonomic, you can make the argument that there's not a whole lot of them out there. But if you didn't, it's going to give you access and an introduction to their product line. What it does, though, is it takes folks who maybe stagnant, or you get caught in a rut of using the same product over and over again, and it gives you new eyes and it maybe a new perspective on a product that you either had the chance to use yet, or just haven't given it a chance. And it gives you a good reason to try it out, because, hey, suddenly I have access to it. What the heck? Let's try it. Either bring it in-house in our own little test lab, or, try out on a job.
Now, one thing that I think kind of gets overlooked when these purchases come through is currently, Autonomic was sold through independent reps and rep distributors. What does this mean for them, especially if this was one of their primary brands?
Sorry? There are, I don't mean to be flip. This is people's business.
That sounded pretty flip.
It was a little flip. I didn't mean to be. But you're going to have contracts that you have to honor through a certain amount of time. Once those contracts are up, though, there is a better than chance than not that they will not be renewed. Simply because it's a different, Snap AV has a different business model than going through rep firms. One thing that I looked at in looking up this story this weekend, Snap AV is not a publicly held company. It's a privately held LLC. So they're looking to expand their base and their offerings, like Jeremy said, but not necessarily through developing their own products. They're finding products that fill a niche, that fill a need that they have, and adding it to their stable. It's not like we talked about a couple of weeks ago with Harman and Samsung. You increase shareholder value, you keep shareholders excited by growing through acquisition, right? The same talk we had about AVI-SPL and picking up the group out of the West Coast. You increase shareholder value and you grow through acquisition. This is not that necessarily. This is growing through acquisition, but it's not necessarily for the shareholders. It's for the other end of that. It's for your clientele. It's for your dealers, the folks who are looking to you for solutions. Snap AV is taking a step back, it looks like, and saying, okay, there are some areas that we don't necessarily have a solution for. Let's go get it, right? And Jeremy's right. It's a lot easier. It's a lot faster to go out and get a company that's already doing it well, purchasing them, and adding them to your stable rather than doing the R&D and developing it on your own.
Well, and especially when you look at the fact that by doing this, they're just bringing more options to their dealer base. They're expanding that dealer base. And Jeremy, one of the things that I found very interesting about this is because they already have their smart home as a service platform and Autonomic has its, once they merge that, is that going to, that really should just be a beneficial aspect to the sale for the dealer. Because again, once these two clouds come together, you instantly have all of this available through the app without the dealer, like myself, having to program something and design an interface.
Yeah, not to mention, I mean, everyone uses Snap AV's ordering platform, their portal, as the model for how things should be done in the future in this business. Granted, you take the rep out of the equation, that's bad for certain people's livelihoods, but it's the process of ordering alone is just such a benefit for Snap AV dealers that I think that this is going to become just a more organic process to include in jobs. And then on the autonomics side, they said to me that they're looking to do new things, and this is basically giving them more money to work with to create new products, and they're keeping that team together, at least for now. Mergers and acquisitions, it's always a hard thing, you try to blend these companies together and there's always some kind of a conflict, and the entrepreneur is usually the first person out the door, and you lose the personality of that company. So far, it looks like they are trying to keep these companies intact and not just homogenize it into one place. They're keeping their location and keeping their complete team, and it's only a 22-person company. It's not a huge company that they're adding. So that's to go beyond what your question was, but that's the concern I have with all of these in this industry. It's just becoming this big homogenized being that doesn't have any identity that it used to have.
Right.
I don't think hopefully that's not going to happen here.
Next up, the U.S. government tried to put into place overtime pay, even for salaried employees. A federal court ruled that wasn't exactly the right thing to do, so we talked about it.
This just was announced literally minutes ago by our friend Jason Knott over at CE Pro, a federal judge is blocking the 47,000 overtime exemption law. This was set to take effect December 1st to raise the threshold, if you don't know about this. So everybody who is making less than 47,000, you'd have to pay overtime to. This is, as I said, blocking it and dropping, keeping it at the existing level of 23.5. So, Josh, Alex, is this a really big deal for integrators?
I think so. I mean, fortunately, I'm on the manufacturing side, so for my employees, we're not necessarily going to be hit too directly by this. We end up paying engineering salaries quite often, so prices are way above that threshold most of the time. But for a lot of the integrators we work with, it's certainly something that's being discussed, and it's I think this announcement's good, but what the announcement is talking about, right, is rectifying what I think would be bad for the industry.
Very good. Richard, you've been in the biz a long, long time. Sure, you've had your experiences with, techs and entry-level guys that are making this sub, 47,000 range. Is this better for the owner or ownership, or is this going to be better in the long run for the employees?
Well, I think that the hardest part, if you talk to any small integrator, that they have is keeping people. They spend a whole lot of time training them. They spend a whole lot of time getting them up and running, and then invariably, I mean, I remember when I broke in, they got me dirt cheap, and I knew it. But there was a certain point where my skill set allowed me to reach a different income threshold. But that wasn't necessarily something that somebody else might have available to them. And so here's the West Coast vibe thing again, but in terms of the equity, in terms of maintaining a workforce, and especially here in California, I mean, our cost of living is so ridiculous that, this doesn't necessarily apply just because of where we are in the Bay Area. In other parts of the country, I could see it being, people are being affected. I mean, our labor rate and our technician rates and our salaries are obviously commensurate with the cost of living here, which is obviously quite different than maybe somewhere in the South or in the Midwest. In the major metropolitan areas, which is where a large part of our industry is focused, I don't know if it's going to be as much of a huge impact, but I think in the smaller markets, this is something definitely to look out for, and it's going to cause a lot of the employers to, and more importantly, and I think better run their businesses better. I mean, this has been the natural evolution about running your business better and maturing as a business. And part of that is maintaining, a qualified and well-compensated workforce.
Tim, as somebody who is based in the Midwest, where, as Rich just said, this may be more applicable. Obviously when they brought this out, there was a lot of noise in the industry about how this was going to affect the bottom line and affect dealers. Is this something where the salary cap numbers that they were using were out of line, or is it something where they should have split the difference?
Wow, split the difference. So the mark that they were setting at, the federal rule set at was 47,000, just below 50,000. I still remember my first job 25 years ago. I barely made this, the minimum it's at now at 23,000, right? We are very inexpensive in the Midwest. I have come to find out over the last 5 or 10 years, in talking with buddies like Rich Fregoso and talking to our friend George Tucker and Chris Netto out in New Jersey and New York. Yes, we're incredibly inexpensive. However, finding a decent tech that is going to put you right in that middle if you want to split the difference. So quick math, 23 to 47 is roughly $24,000 difference. So you got $12,000 there. So it's going to put you just south 35. Of 40 grand. That's going to be in the average, entry level tech, and some beginning design engineer jobs here. and even some beginning programming jobs. So you're still going to have a good swath of your workforce that's going to be affected if they do split the difference, as you said, and around the $35,000-$36,000 mark.
So I guess my biggest question coming out of this is, is this something that is just hard for, and anybody can answer this, is this something that's just going to, no matter what they do with it, make it harder on the employers, or is it going to be a hindrance to onboarding new employees?
I don't think it should be a hindrance to onboarding new employees. I think what it is it gives employers a little bit more pause maybe when they're bringing people up through the ranks and giving them an increase. You look at what they're saying in this federal law, anybody that makes this, salary or not, anybody that makes this gets overtime. I've been salaried for a good portion of my career, never got overtime, right? Regardless of anything. And so if, the 2 or 3 jobs ago that I had, they would be forced then to give me overtime regardless of whether I was salaried or not. And last but not least, one of our regular guests, Stephen Bronner, is informed right before we do the episode that Harman has just been bought by Samsung.
All right, let's kick this off with kind of the story that everybody's talking about. If you haven't heard, this is kind of a big deal. I'm not breaking anything, but if you haven't heard, Samsung, our favorite manufacturer of explosive phones, is buying Harman, our favorite manufacturer of big massive speakers and lighting and all kinds of goodies. I think the largest not independent, but the largest AV company in the world has just been bought by, or in the pro AV market, I should say, has just been bought by Samsung. This is a huge deal. They're buying them for $8 billion. They are planning to run them as a subsidiary for the foreseeable future, and they're paying about 28% over the existing stock price. So if you look back to the start of the year, Harman was trading around 61, and as of end of day yesterday, it was around 112. So a huge increase over the last year, but B, just a massive shift. I don't think I can underestimate how large of a shift this is for our industry. Now, the one thing I will say is that we in the industry, obviously, we love Harman for things like, JBL, things like Crown Amps, things like Martin Lighting. The rest of the world does not know Harman for those products. Huh?
I was gonna say, don't forget AMX as well. AMX and
AMX,
SVSI.
No. All the brand BSS, all the guys under their umbrella, but they're not well known for that to the general populace. And this is what Samsung has gone after. Samsung has essentially bought Harman because it gets their foot in the door to the automotive industry. Harman has last year had, what was it, $3 billion of their sales. That percentage was all automotive, and they had $24 billion in back orders. Like, it's absolutely insane. Stephen, what does this, as a residential dealer, what does this sale, when it goes through potentially in a couple of months, what does this mean for you?
For those of you not watching, Stephen just put up a poster that said WTF.
I quit. That's what it means. I freaking quit.
I applaud you for helping us maintain our rating, though. Thank you. That's fantastic.
Year, my package got bought by another company. I about had a meltdown. Now you are telling me that the king of race to the bottom TV prices has bought a premium quality line like Harman. Just absolutely floors me.
Okay, hang on for a second, and I'll get to what I'm going to say in a second. But Samsung is not race to the bottom. There are so many more people ahead of them on the race to the bottom. Hawaii, Vizio, come on.
Well, now, okay.
They're not
so I'll put it to
Panasonic
you
or
like this.
Pioneer from years ago, but they're not Race to the Bottom.
Right, but I'll put it to you like this. When it comes to our industry, I only focus on what affects us.
Okay.
Of all the TV lines that we can carry, our lowest profit margin is on Samsung. If you can buy it in Best Buy for $1,100, my cost on it is $10.
$1,100.
Yeah, it's about $10,080. Yeah. So when I say race to the bottom, I mean, as far as profits go, you're right. They're not the cheapest TVs on the market. I mean, there will always be a Vizio, but there is what you do have to think about is, what affects our industry. That affects our industry. I hear a lot of guys say, I don't even sell TVs anymore. Well, they do that because brands like Samsung have made it where it's not worth our time to sell TVs. There was a time whenever it was worth it. Panasonic, Pioneer, things of that nature. But right now, it's not really worth our time anymore to sell it. And that's why a lot of people stop selling TVs. So now I have a line like Harman, which is a high quality, extremely valuable line. I mean, like you said, AKG, Soundcraft, Crown Audio, JBL speakers. You're talking about a huge variety of
all
exquisite,
quite profitable lines too.
very profitable, and that's my
dealer.
concern. So they say they're going to run it as a subsidiary, which is great, but everybody says that. So nobody wants to buy a company and then come right out and say, "Oh, and by the way, we're going to trash the line."
Now, keep in mind that when you look at the numbers, the reason that Samsung went after them is because Samsung's been trying to get into that automotive infotainment market, and this is the way to do it. Is you buy arguably the largest single source supplier of infotainment systems to the automotive industry. They run brands like Land Rover, Jaguar, Mercedes, BMW. They're in Audis. I can go on, VW. They're gigantic.
Just for
in that
people who
market.
are listening, to this and don't know what we're talking about, when you see Mark Levinson, that's Harman.
That's Harman.
So
even they're even licensing the B&O line, and
Bang & Olufsen, yeah.
And I'm blanking on the other big line.
no, they're actually licensing the Harman name. Some of it is licensed Harman.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so
they're one of the biggest players in that game.
Right.
Now, where this becomes entertaining from the automotive side, and then Tim will get your thoughts on it, is Apple's been trying to make a push for this for quite a while, and one of the story we're using on this is excuse me, from CNBC with Matt Money and Jim Cramer. He said back in January that Apple should pony up $9 billion and buy Harman. And some of us got excited when that was announced because Apple buys a lot of stuff, and I'd love to see them play in this game. But Tim, give us your thoughts in general, but then follow it up with your thoughts on Apple's supposed push for the automotive market now that Harman is owned by Samsung.
So I'm gonna try to be very, very careful here because we've got 2 weekly shows. A bunch of the guys got online last night.
I am stealing as much possible.
Well, no. Here's the thing. I'm gonna try to focus on. I'm gonna try to focus on the residential side. You and Coxon and Tucker and
I want your Friday show.
A bunch of folks did a really good job of doing some immediate feedback last night as well. So residential and home people, right? I would make an argument to say that there are some people out there who do know who Harman is. There's a Harman Kardon speakers out there, Bluetooth as well as consumer products.
Yep. JBL headphones.
Yep, absolutely. JBL headphones. You've got a lot of folks and they're pushing more and more into this over the last few years. This is going to open up. And I'm going to be interested to watch this and talk to folks like Steven and you guys. Matt, to see if this helps or hurts those margins, Stephen. Because one thing that Harman has done as a corporation is they package their deals, right? They package their products. If you buy a Crown amp and JBL speakers and an AMX system, you're going to get margin off, right? You're going to get some leeway to play with.
4%.
Okay, whatever it is, and yours may be different. So again,
Okay. Yeah.
But you're going to get some percentage points off if you package together a deal. How much better and how much more incentive would it be then to suddenly be given a line of Samsung or be given access to that line, where today you don't? Where today, like Steven said, you don't make money off of that. Now, that's me looking through rose-colored glasses. I think it's very possible. I think it's even probable, especially as Samsung walks down this road and they start talking with the folks at Harman and looking into the dealer channel.
So here's on that point. Here's where it gets more fun. Think in that channel. Think in that line. Think about the connected device capability of a Samsung TV and a Samsung Blu-ray player. Yep. Now think about adding that technology and merging that technology with a Harman Kardon receiver.
Or an AMX processor.
Or an AMX processor. Or using AMX power behind your Samsung remote.
I'll do one better for you. How about putting an SVSI receiver built into a Samsung display?
Yeah. And then that takes their commercial display line, which again, I'm stealing your Friday stuff, and makes it a fantastic off-the-shelf, instant plug-and-play compatibility. That one-wire plug-and-play compatibility that we've been thinking about and asking for what, 10 years?
Something like that. So
everything that we wanted HDMI to be is now possible with potentially an SVSI endpoint on a Samsung display.
Built in, without built in. So the other side of this is the negative side, right? The glass half empty side. Samsung and Harman have both had issues over the last year when it comes to security and product rollouts. Samsung, obviously, the fact that you can't even carry a Samsung Note 7 onto a plane would be an issue.
Or one of their washing machines.
Or one of the washing machines. Harman,
both of those are bad.
Harman, their infotainment system has been hacked and controlled. And almost this time last year was when the AMX story with the back door started to come out a little bit. That was more 1st of January, but this is when they were starting doing some of the testing. So both companies have had some serious PR issues over the last year. It'll be very, very interesting to watch how they handle that going forward.
Well, I'm glad that you're able to look at it through rose-colored glasses, and that's really awesome. I admire that about you.
Bring us down, Stephen.
You're my hero. So on the flip side of that, you and I have had this conversation a few times that you don't sell product.
True.
You don't sell.
And so even in my working world, I was a programmer. So
right. So from a person who sells product and has actually had to watch those margins and those things, I can tell you that just like I referred to package earlier, Control 4 bought package, and the first thing they said was, we're not going to touch the line. We're not doing anything with the line. And next thing I know, they're dropping all the prices. Now, a lot of people say, well, that's good. That means more people can have it. The problem is now when I need support on a package product, the wait times are longer because now you've got more people that have it that don't have the experience. So
now
it's
to
a double-edged
counter that
sword.
point though, or to at least make a comment on that point, you're also talking two dramatically different scaled companies size-wise.
Right.
So,
but
Package and Control 4, they could make that shift fairly quickly. Whereas with Harman and Samsung, that's going to take some time. You're not going to move that ship that quickly.
It will. And you are absolutely 100% correct. It will take time. I guess the cynic, and normally I have a really nice outlook on things. I try to be real positive, but the cynic in me has already had to go through this once this year, and this just here's another line. And to be honest with you, I just got off the phone with a guy who I'm designing a system for him. I do consulting around the country. And I just talked him into going Harman. And one of the reasons why was because of the product, the profit margin and the quality of the product. Now, quality is first always. But we were talking about other products that are quality, and we ended up going the Harman route because of the multi-line discounts that Tim spoke of, and some other discounts that we get as direct dealers, and the fact that we can make money on it and sell a quality product. So I don't have a problem necessarily with Samsung buying them. I see all these acquisitions happening, and I see everybody say, we're not going to touch the line. And when was the last time you were in a room full of executives, people that were able to make it to the point where they're an executive in a company like Samsung, and there weren't enough egos in the room to want to touch everything in there? I mean, seriously, think about it. We've got a president now that was talking about how he had the power to grab a woman. You know, these are high ego people. They are not going to leave this line alone, because if they leave it alone, then it makes it look like they have no control over it. So hopefully they will. Hopefully they will. But man, it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me. I wish they would have bought Bose.
Okay, now just so we put everything in context, Steven did not know this until 5 minutes ago before we told him, right before we were on the air.
So he's dealing with some sticker shock.
Yes.
He's been underwater with a project. So here's my last question on this topic before we let it go. Given, Tim, your very sunny view on this acquisition, and Stephen, given your possibly darker view on it, what is the likelihood that Samsung, being the behemoth that it is, and if all the reports are true, that it went after Harman strictly for the automotive side and the potential IoT CE side of things, what's the likelihood that Samsung really doesn't mess with the Pro AV side? Because honestly, they just don't care.
Steven says 0. Can't see that.
And it was a big fat 0 to be specific, if you're not watching the stream.
I just, we deal with the top 1 to 2% income earners on a daily basis. You get to know these people, you get to know how they think, you get to admire how they think, you see them make a living and make a fortune out of nothing sometimes. But one thing I have known to be consistent is they want to touch everything. They want to be involved. You can't just hand them something like that and then not look at it and go, how can I improve this? Well, Harman got to where it is. You bought them because they were great. Don't touch it. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. And I think the best way I can sum this up is from a great movie. You're killing me, Smalls. You're killing me.
All right, I'll make this very short, sweet, and to the point. There's a very good possibility that Samsung really did just want it from the infotainment side. Matt mentioned the fact that there's $24 billion in backlog. That is for the car division. There's also a very good possibility that we're going to see, a Crown booth again, a JBL booth again, a AMX booth again. And what I'm saying is there's a very good chance that Samsung may sell off those pieces that they either don't understand or don't have any use for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very, very possible, as Stephen goes into a bigger meltdown.
That's it for us here at ResiWeek. Thank you so much for listening. This has been a new show for us, a new foray into the residential market. We have lots of folks at AVNation that live and breathe inside the residential market. Matt Scott, Stephen Bronner, Todd Puma, Richie Vergoza. So this is a show where they can kind of shine along with our regular guests and our special guests that come in from time to time. So thank you so much for making this such a successful show. Coming up next year, we have lots of stuff going on. We'll be going to ISE and covering the residential side of ISE, obviously CEDIA, and a whole lot more. So thank you so much for listening. For all of us here at AVNation, happy holidays, happy new year. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for the successful first year of this show. And for more information about us and AVNation, you can go to avnation.tv, avnation.tv. Thanks so much for listening. This has been ResiWeek.